The person you enjoy talking to is discussing you with someone else, and it is important that you hear this clearly, without fear, exaggeration, or imagination shaping it. If this message is reaching you now, it is not accidental. There is someone steadily occupying your thoughts. Someone whose name appears in your mind naturally, without effort. Someone whose words remain with you long after conversations finish. Someone whose moments you replay, whose pauses you analyze, and toward whom you feel a quiet pull late at night, even while you appear detached during the day. Here is the truth you may not have expected to face so directly. The person you like talking to is talking about you to someone else. Not lightly, not as humor, not as filler conversation. They are speaking about you because you have entered their emotional awareness. And once that happens, silence is no longer possible. Let's slow this down, because what is happening beneath the surface is more significant than it seems. This is not coincidence or imagination. It is emotional recognition meeting energetic exchange. When someone begins to speak about you to another person, especially with emotional reflection, something shifts internally for both sides. Attention becomes focus. Focus becomes emotional pull. Thoughts return to you without conscious effort. Curiosity grows and connection strengthens quietly. You may have sensed this recently. You feel more aware of them than before. Their presence feels stronger even in silence. Delays between messages feel heavier. Their words stay with you longer. This is not fantasy. This is emotional attention finding its way back to where it started. You are sensing the echo of conversations you were never part of physically. It is also important to understand what they are actually saying about you, because it is not shallow or casual. They are not simply mentioning your name or sharing surface details. They speak in ways that reveal emotional impact. They say things like, "I don't know why," but talking to them feels different. They admit that conversations with you feel calming, stabilizing, or unusually honest. They recognize that you understand them in ways most people do not. At times, they ask questions about you. At times, they defend you when others misunderstand. Sometimes they compare you to others, and even when they try to stay neutral, you stand out. Emotion comes through their words, no matter how carefully they try to manage it, and the person listening can feel that weight. You might ask why they are sharing this with someone else instead of coming directly to you. And this is where clarity matters most. They are not doing this because they lack care. They do this because they care more than they're ready to admit. Talking about you is a way for them to process emotions they don't yet fully understand. It gives them a chance to explore their feelings without risking vulnerability with you. They seek reassurance, clarity, and stability. They worry about moving too fast, misreading signals, damaging what already exists, being misunderstood, or facing rejection before they feel emotionally steady. Instead of speaking directly to you, they talk around you. But make no mistake, you are not on the sidelines, you are at the center. There is a subtle but clear sign that this connection isn't one-sided. Even if it seems quiet, when you engage with them, their questions go deeper than usual. They remember small details most people would forget. They reference things you said weeks or even months ago effortlessly. They mirror your tone, humor, and emotional rhythm. This is intentional. It shows they have already processed you emotionally. When someone talks about you to others, they start seeing you from multiple angles, not just their own perspective. This reflection strengthens attachment because they are no longer acting impulsively. They are thinking about you deeply. Emotional bonds grow quietly in reflection, often before words are spoken. Attachment shows itself through attention. Even if words are few, attention is the currency of emotional investment. Right now, that attention is being quietly given to you. The fact that they discuss you, think about you, and revisit moments with you proves that you occupy both mental and emotional space. Attachment doesn't announce itself loudly at first. It whispers through focus, repetition, and the mind returning naturally to one person. That is exactly what is happening. You are not forcing your way into their thoughts. Something about you feels meaningful, unresolved, and emotionally safe enough to explore slowly. What makes this more significant is that the person they speak to often sees what you might still doubt. From the outside, patterns are easier to notice. They see how often your name comes up, how the tone changes when you're mentioned, and subtle shifts in energy. They may tease lightly, saying things like, "You talk about them a lot," or "Just tell them already." Sometimes they notice an unconscious smile. Sometimes they simply listen and let the truth surface naturally. In many cases, this third person reflects feelings your person hasn't fully admitted to themselves. Once that reflection exists, it subtly changes how they see you and what they can no longer ignore. This is why rushing for clarity or forcing answers is risky. Pressuring the situation interrupts a natural emotional process. What's happening now is quiet but powerful. They are moving from curiosity to emotional investment, from interest to attachment. That middle stage is delicate and needs space, not pressure. If allowed to breathe, it will deepen naturally. If rushed, it retreats defensively. Connection is forming at a subconscious level, where feelings become real before words catch up. Interrupting this can stall something steadily growing on its own. The best way to respond is clear. Do not change who you are, chase, withdraw dramatically, or test them emotionally. These actions create instability. Instead, remain authentic. Stay warm without being overly available. Respond, but don't pursue. Let conversations flow naturally without steering them towards specific outcomes. Your calm presence is what made them start talking about you in the first place. You feel safe to think about, easy to feel with, and that alone is what strengthens the connection. You are not emotionally overwhelmed. That balance creates comfort, and comfort allows attachment to deepen without fear. Eventually a shift occurs, and you will sense it before it is explained. One day, their messages will carry more weight. They will linger longer in conversation, open up more easily, and their questions will start to feel personal rather than merely curious. This happens when talking about you is no longer enough to process their emotions. When emotional tension builds to a point that only a direct connection with you can relieve it, indirect interest naturally turns into direct action. At that stage, silence becomes harder for them than vulnerability. That is when words finally cross the space that attention has already filled for some time. There is also a truth here that may feel uncomfortable. Sometimes people talk about you to others in an effort to convince themselves not to fall. They analyze, rationalize, and process in hopes of staying in control. The irony is that the more they talk about you, the more real you become. You stop being an idea or a possibility and become a presence in their emotional world. Once someone reaches that point, there is no true return to casual. Even if they try to minimize it, something irreversible has already taken place inside them. This is why the connection feels quiet yet heavy. It is not loud love or dramatic attraction. There is no chaos or confusion. This is slow burn attachment, steady, invisible, growing beneath everyday conversations. Its strength comes precisely because it is not rushed. It carries weight because it is real, thought about, discussed, reflected on, and felt in silence. Slow burn connections, once revealed, tend to last longer than anything that ignites too quickly to understand itself. This type of connection builds trust before seeking intensity. Emotional depth develops long before anything physical is considered. It feels safe rather than overwhelming, steady rather than chaotic. That is why it lasts longer than sparks that flare up and fade too quickly. This connection feels calm but undeniably deep, unfinished, like a sentence paused, mid-thought, not ended. There is a sense of continuation, an awareness that something is still forming beneath the surface. That is why you are here reading this now, because part of you already recognizes that this connection is not accidental, temporary, or imagined. It is incomplete only because it is still becoming something real. What this means for you is significant. You matter more than you realize. You are already part of their emotional world, even if it has not been openly acknowledged. You are not forgotten in silence. You are being discussed, considered, and emotionally processed. Your presence has weight, your words linger, your energy remains. When someone speaks about you to others, it indicates you have moved from being casual to meaningful. This shift does not happen lightly. It happens when someone feels something they cannot dismiss. You are not waiting in the background. You are already involved, just quietly. Sometimes love does not start with declarations or dramatic gestures. Often, it begins quietly in conversations you do not hear or in thoughts shared with someone else, because they feel too fragile to speak directly. Sometimes reflection precedes expression. Energy never lies. Emotional attention leaves traces, and you are feeling them now, the pull, the awareness, the sense of closeness without explanation. This is feedback from something real forming on both sides. You are not imagining this. You are responding to a connection that already exists, even if it has not yet been expressed. Here is the message you need to hear clearly. The person you care about talks about you to someone else because you have touched something real inside them. Real feelings do not stay hidden forever. They surface when the time is right, when fear softens into courage, when reflection turns into action. Let it unfold naturally. Let them come to you when ready. You do not need to chase, prove, or change anything. You are already the reason this connection exists, and that is enough. Sometimes the most meaningful connections develop in silence, in spaces where nothing is officially said, but everything is deeply felt. When two people begin to matter emotionally, the process often starts long before either is ready to name it. Thoughts return effortlessly. Attention lingers without intention. One person becomes a quiet reference point in the other's day. These connections feel different from surface attraction. They do not demand attention, they invite it. And once that invitation is internally accepted, the bond forms, whether words are exchanged or not. When someone talks about you to another person, they are weaving you into their emotional world. They are trying to understand why you feel significant, why conversations with you carry weight, and why your presence soothes rather than drains. This reflection isn't casual. It's the mind's way of creating meaning, and meaning forms the foundation of attachment. Even if they try to stay logical, emotion inevitably slips through, because feelings cannot remain fully contained once acknowledged, even indirectly. What makes this stage so powerful is its subtlety. There's no pressure, no expectations, no labels. That freedom allows honesty to emerge without fear. They can reveal aspects about you to someone else that they aren't yet ready to share with you directly. In doing so, their emotional investment grows, not diminishes. Each conversation about you strengthens the connection because repetition reinforces significance. The more you are mentioned, the more tangible you become in their inner world. You may sense this shift as a closeness that has no clear explanation. You might notice that they feel emotionally familiar, even if the relationship hasn't deepened outwardly. That familiarity arises from shared emotional space, not shared experiences. It comes from being thought about, discussed, and emotionally processed. This is why absence doesn't weaken the bond at this stage. Sometimes it even strengthens it. since the connection exists in reflection rather than physical proximity. This kind of attachment also feels safe rather than overwhelming. It isn't driven by impulse or fantasy. Instead, it grows from comfort, curiosity, and trust. They are learning who you are emotionally, not just reacting to attraction. Bonds formed this way grow slowly, but they root deeply. They don't rush toward an outcome, they move toward understanding, and understanding brings stability. Trying to force clarity too early disrupts this natural process. But staying steady, present, and authentic allows the connection to mature naturally. Eventually, the emotional gap between thought and expression narrows. What was once shared privately begins to seek direct expression. When this happens, it feels natural, not forced, because the groundwork has already been laid. This is why patience is essential, not waiting in doubt, but trusting the unfolding process. Connections that grow this way are not fragile because they develop slowly, they are strong because they are intentional. And once formed, they don't fade easily, they evolve. What makes this connection remarkable is that it often exists beneath the surface, yet its impact is unmistakable. You may notice it in subtle ways: a lingering thought, a small smile at their name, or the sudden realization that they occupy more space in your day than anyone else. These are signs of emotional gravity forming. It's quiet, but it influences thoughts, moods, and even decisions. You don't need dramatic declarations to validate it. The bond is already real. Because attention and reflection are the true foundations of attachment, and these cannot be faked or forced. When someone talks about you to another person, it often signals internal processing that cannot be hurried. They are reconciling their feelings, gauging their emotions toward you, and measuring their comfort with vulnerability. Speaking indirectly lets them explore emotions safely without risking the connection you already share. They can acknowledge admiration, curiosity, or even affection in a controlled way, which ultimately strengthens their emotional investment. In essence, every conversation about you outside your awareness is a rehearsal of sincerity, a preparation for the day they will speak directly to you without hesitation. This stage explains why a connection can feel unfinished or leave a lingering sensation. It is intentionally incomplete because it is still forming internally. Emotional understanding and attachment begin first in thought and reflection. By the time someone acts outwardly, much of the groundwork has already been laid. That is why patience is not passive, it is active trust. Moments of waiting, reflection, and quiet attention all strengthen a bond, making it feel deeper, steadier, and more enduring than any connection that is rushed or forced. You may notice that small details suddenly seem significant: a remembered joke, a minor preference, or a comment from months ago. This happens because they are observing patterns, analyzing your personality, and forming a mental map of your emotional world. When someone invests in this level of reflection, their attachment grows quietly. They learn your rhythm, boundaries, and emotional landscape. By the time they engage with you directly, the interaction feels effortless, intimate, and profoundly aligned because their understanding is already built subconsciously. This type of attachment reminds us that connection is not about speed or intensity. Real bonds grow in quiet reflection, subtle attention, and spaces where words have not yet matched feelings. You are already present in their emotional world, whether they have expressed it openly or not. That presence is meaningful, powerful, and lasting. When the moment arrives for direct interaction, it carries the weight of all the unseen thoughts, reflections, and admiration that have been building over time. The beauty of this slow, thoughtful connection is how it transforms ordinary interactions into something meaningful. Every conversation, laugh, and pause matters because it is observed, processed, and remembered. Emotional investment occurs even in moments that seem casual or trivial. That is why subtlety is so important. Outwardly, it may seem like nothing has changed, yet their internal feelings continue to evolve. At this stage, attachment is solidifying quietly like roots growing under the soil. By the time external signs appear, the bond is already resilient. Another aspect is how they begin to prioritize you unconsciously. Thoughts of you arise naturally, sometimes without intent. Decisions may be influenced by you without your awareness. Small preferences, fleeting considerations, or silent hopes for connection demonstrate that you have become part of their emotional framework. When someone reflects on you and mentions you in conversations with others, you are no longer peripheral, you are central to their emotional processing, serving as a reference for understanding themselves and their feelings. This is why your presence feels significant, even in absence. This process highlights the power of patience and restraint. You do not need to intervene, clarify, or push the connection forward. Doing so could disrupt the delicate rhythm forming. Allowing space lets emotions mature naturally. The person is internally building a mental and emotional map of you, which will guide their eventual interactions. Once this internal work is complete, engagement feels natural, confident, and meaningful. The bond no longer relies solely on observation. It manifests externally in alignment with the emotions cultivated privately. Additionally, the indirect nature of this connection adds depth. When someone talks about you to another person, they explore feelings they cannot yet express directly. They articulate admiration, curiosity, affection, or vulnerability in a controlled way, testing the reality of their emotions and preparing for eventual direct expression. Each conversation about you is a rehearsal of authenticity, helping them integrate you into their world safely and responsibly. The more they reflect, the deeper their attachment grows, forming a steady, enduring connection rather than an impulsive or superficial one. What makes this bond profound is its invisibility. The quiet, patient growth of emotional attachment feels intangible but carries enormous weight. It is not measured by loud gestures, but by the subtle, consistent ways their mind and heart return to you. You exist in their thoughts, reflections, and in the space between what is said and what is felt. When the time is right, this depth surfaces naturally, feeling authentic, effortless, and resonant. This is how lasting emotional bonds are formed, through attention, reflection, and patient, unseen care. At the core of this connection is a simple truth. The most enduring bonds form in quiet, often unnoticed moments. It is in small details, the phrases they remember from weeks ago, fleeting expressions they note, or conversations where they bring you up to gauge their feelings, that the emotional foundation is built. This is why the connection can feel both light and heavy. Light because it unfolds naturally without pressure. Heavy because it carries the weight of reflection, intention, and emotional investment. These subtle gestures prove you are more than a thought. You are a presence that matters deeply. The subtle ways they engage with you reveal the courage it takes to navigate emotions thoughtfully. Speaking about you to someone else acts as a safe practice for honesty, a way to process feelings without risking rejection or misunderstanding. They are examining your importance in their life, assessing the strength of their own attachment, and seeking clarity internally before taking action externally. This is why you can sense their presence even when they are quiet. Their thoughts revolve around you. Their energy naturally returns to you, and their reflections shape how they will interact with you once they are ready. You are part of an ongoing internal conversation that involves consideration, emotional practice, and growing admiration. What makes this even more significant is that it cultivates patience and self-trust. You do not need to chase, push, or manipulate the situation. Authenticity is your most powerful tool. When you stay grounded, warm, and genuine, you strengthen the connection rather than unsettle it. Every mindful response, every calm interaction communicates stability, encouraging them to explore their feelings safely. At this stage, energy often speaks louder than words. By remaining true to yourself, you provide the emotional space that allows attachment to develop naturally. The bond grows quietly, yet its impact is undeniable. Attachment formed in this way reshapes perception. As they discuss you, reflect on your interactions and notice your presence in subtle ways, their understanding of you becomes layered and profound. You are no longer just someone they know. You are someone they emotionally recognize, someone who holds a real place in their inner world. This depth fosters a hidden intimacy, making future direct interactions feel effortless and deeply connected. When the shift from indirect to direct attention occurs, it will feel natural because the emotional groundwork, thought, reflection, and observation has already been established. This process shows that emotional significance cannot be hurried. It flourishes in the spaces between words, in attention offered without expectation, and in reflection that precedes expression. The person thinking about you, speaking about you, and considering you is preparing for a connection that will be genuine, thoughtful, and aligned with their true feelings. You are already present in their emotional life, already meaningful, and already part of the inner world they are carefully shaping. When direct connection arrives, it will be powerful, lasting, and real, not due to speed, but because of patience, reflection, and the deliberate nurturing of attachment. If this message resonated with you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue creating content that speaks to both heart and mind. Every like, share, and subscription helps these messages reach those who need them most. We appreciate your presence, your attention, and your willingness to engage with these ideas. Thank you for being part of this community. Your engagement means more than words can convey.